My guests today are Maggie Adler and Rita Pohl, co-curators of the current exhibit at the Amy Carter Museum of American Art called Emancipation, the Unfinished Project of Liberation. Before we take a tour of this exhibition, can you give us a background on how this idea started?
Well, we're really intrigued by the notion of how the historical objects in our collection can come to life for contemporary audiences and what makes them relevant. And so it really started from an investigation of our 1863 John Quincy Adams Ward's The Freedman, which is one of the first representations of a black person in bronze in the United States, and also highly aspirational in that it was created before the Civil War concluded, and so before we knew what the outcome of the Civil War would be.
But also, it is also a moment to commemorate the Emancipation Proclamation, 160th anniversary, and considering the significance of that moment in terms of incorporating African Americans into the nation state, we thought it would be a great idea to do the exhibition now.
Okay, cool. And there are 7 artists. How did you choose these people?
Yeah, we were interested in artists whose work naturally connected to ideas of emancipation, liberation, and incarceration. And we wanted artists who are early to mid-career so that we were introducing audiences to a new batch of artists.
But we also wanted artists who could also either do sculptural work, mixed media, or site-specific installations. Many times when people reflect on this moment, they look at ephemera or photography or works on paper. So we really wanted to add a different vision by having artists respond to a sculpture. So sculptors and site-specific responding to a sculptural piece.
Wonderful. Let's look at some of these pieces.
Okay. So we're standing in front of works by Fort Worth's own Letitia Huckabee. And Letitia was asked by the descendants of the last known slave ship to enter United States waters to chronicle their lives. And this was a ship that entered the Mobile River in Alabama illegally. The punishment was death for doing that. There were 110 captives on board, and all of them survived to produce generations of descendants. So what you see here are the silhouettes of the descendants of the 110 people who came on that ship, the Clotilda.
But also the descendants of Kojo Lewis, who was featured in Zora Neale Hurston's book, Barracoon. And all of these people are also, you get a broader sense of their story from the Netflix documentary Descendants. So we encourage people to see that, but this is Letitia's own take on that experience and showing in some ways the connection or the connectivity between their ancestor, that moment, and people in the contemporary period.
So now we're standing by Hugh Hayden's American Dream. And Hugh was the artist, Dallas-born artist who lives in New York. He was the artist who responded most directly to our 19th century sculpture, The Freedman. And what he had us do was do a 3D scan with Envision, an aerospace company, to allow him to create a representation of what freedom would look like for the freedman in the 21st century.
And what's really striking about the piece, in addition to its kind of contemporary feel in terms of the clothing that we can recognize pretty well, the cargo pants, the sandals, the Adirondack chair, but it's really a significant contribution to the show insofar as it allows us to have a different take, not just on emancipation, but freedom. And Hugh brings forth the question of, essentially, can the freedman have a chance to rest?
We're here with Maya Freelon's piece, The Unfinished Project of Liberation. And this is a site-specific work, so this responds to our architecture. And Maya's grandmother, when she found out that Maya wanted to be an artist, saved the tissue paper that she had been collecting in her basement that kind of had some water damage on it, and said, "You're an artist, do something with this." And Maya is really interested in that elevating power where the everyday objects can be made special and joyful and transcendent in the hands of an artist in the space of a museum. So she really wants you to interact with this work.
She also drew upon a very strong tradition in African American culture of doing like quilting from piecemeal. So she moves from individualized pieces of paper to create this very involved and elaborate kind of site-specific installation that includes connecting them the way that our grandmothers would have done so to create blankets or quilts for the household. So she attaches them with various kind of like glue, and I guess I shouldn't give you all the details of her process, but essentially to give you the sense that you're involved in a much more elaborate process where even the most mundane or the kind of the leftovers can still be used for something productive.
Jeffrey Maris is a Haitian-born artist who grew up in the Bahamas and now lives in New York, and he uses his own body in his work. So this is a cast of his torso, and he's really interested in the systems of oppression that kind of grind us down. And this is a sculpture that moves. It's a kinetic sculpture. So over the course of the exhibition, the torso moves up and down and generates this dust. And this dust becomes the material from which Jeffrey makes his drawings.
And in some respects, again, we're looking at an artist to connect it to the idea of the afterlives or after effects of enslavement, but also the ways in which people, even when they're having a difficult experience with systemic forms of discrimination, can ultimately transform it into something beautiful or worthy of meditation and reflection on the experience that's not solely about trauma. So this work is done by Georgia-born artist Alfred Conte, and it is a piece entitled Float. What he does in all of his pieces is to give you the sense that the work is, or the individuals are coated with this like rust-like substance to give you the sense that they have been poisoned by systems of discrimination and inequality. But Float is striking insofar as it lets you see an image of a woman who is almost compared to a stigmata or a Christ-like figure who still rises above despite all of the issues and challenges that she faces as an African American within the society. A particular feature of her, and also something that's also critical to African Americans in this country, is the connection to the church, which is a site that is used for healing, restoration, and also for just managing when things are challenging in the society. And so she has a hat that she wears, which is something, church hats are really critical to African American women in the church, but this one is one that is more of the style of women of the 19th and early of 20th century. And so again, over time, from the experience of enslavement that you see through the chains, she rises and rises and rises above and manages to overcome her circumstances despite a system full of discrimination that he compares to being poisoned by tetanus, which is why you see these kind of bubbles and these lines in the way that tetanus gets into the bloodstream and poisons the person's body.
I think we really wanted to end the show with a degree of hope and a moment of transcendence, and so we're really grateful for Alfred for this aspirational work.
And at the same time, what's also really important is to realize, though we have not fully overcome the after effects of enslavement, we still continue to improve and to rise out of those circumstances to have better experiences each and every day.